Welcome, everybody, to the new Spiritual Science workshop and lecture series. And this is our first episode covering the energy secrets. I will reword this later and tell you why. Of our current holidays in our Western world. In June, and actually today, we're celebrating Pentecost. Yeah, so this is something that I have started a few years ago, just here and there, random for these uh, holidays that I thought were significant for us. But let's back up a little bit and introduce this new workshop series here and why am I doing this. So my name is Jona Bryndis. I have been a spiritual teacher, energy healer, coach, therapist, and motivational speaker for the last 30 years. In the last 20 years, I have been focusing on spiritual subjects. And as so many times for people like myself, like yourself, who choose to step out and express their spiritual insights, there is a beautiful journey behind this. I've actually started out as a chemist, as a scientist, as a total believer in material science. And the more I knew, you've heard this before, the more I came to discover about material science, the more I came to the conclusion that I didn't know anything. So the deeper scientific investigation into the world, the cosmos, life, and so forth has led me into spirituality. I was not raised in a religious context. And therefore, I've discovered that many of us have, I say, blockages or barriers in understanding sort of the deeper mysticism and spiritual reality that is underneath our material reality. I did not have that. And so I can see what the steps are that are needed to uncover those, to harmonize this material experience that we have here in this physical body with some of our spiritual questions and our striving. This lecture workshop series, as always, is open for you to ask questions at any time, but specifically at the end of the segment. So I understand that the topics are quite deep. I call it an invitation to a deep dive into the spiritual reality. And therefore, many of these things need some time for us to unfold. So I understand if questions come later, and that's why we will post these lecture workshops, not just on YouTube. You might be watching this on YouTube right now, but also in our spiritual community. I will talk a little bit about this at the end of this series, of this workshop. We are launching our new spiritual community on June 19th. This is a big event for me, and today's lecture will also have to do with this, namely, why is it important for us to find places, safe places, spaces, to not only explore and consume spiritual knowledge, but also to express it, to find our own rendering, to find our own individualized expression for it, and discuss our everyday life's problems or challenges with people that are like-minded, with people who speak our language. Let's begin this workshop in the spirit of this entire series and basically, all that I do, and do a sober investigation into the words, into the terms, into the actual topics that we are discussing here. Not just sort of take my word for everything and, blindly believe in everything that I say, but investigate it. This new workshop series is here to discuss these spiritual topics in our times through sober investigation. And we're using ancient wisdoms along with our own personal conscious contemplation to do that. The main focus with this is the deeper exploration of contemporary Western holidays and traditions, as I've already mentioned, as well as the insights from Christian mysticism and Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy. Many of us, as I mentioned before, have sort of negative experiences with spiritual schools or religions. And these can only be overcome if we actually form our own bridge, our own way into understanding our own spiritual nature. So it points back to who we are as humans here in this world and in the entire cosmos, if you will. So this particular workshop is the kickoff for our new in-depth workshop series that will be available to Sacred Self-Healing members. Spiritual science, to come to our question, is the conscious study and experience of the unseen laws and realities that shape our life, that shape matter, the soul and the cosmos all together. I used to call it energy secrets, and I hinted at that earlier, and I feel compelled now to rephrase this. I realized that by using the word energy, which is so, fashionable right now, that this is ambiguous, and I want to bring in more clarity. I will do an effort here to show why I believe that the unconscious use of words, such as energy, for example, and their meanings and their particular significance can get lost. So if we don't really understand the word energy, we shouldn't be using it. And I will sort of help us here along the way, to decode that. It is mainly, and this will be perhaps a surprise to you, through the imagery that forms inside of your own mind, that creates realities. And therefore, it's really important that we investigate, the thought forms that we create through words, through attitudes, through beliefs, conscious and unconscious. So it is now the time to uncover the power and also the misuse, which is a big part of my work, as you know, of words and their subconscious effects on our mind and spirit. And learn ways to harmonize that, to understand that just because we have previously used certain things in an unconscious way or in a manipulated way, in a way that media has portrayed it to us, or in a way that marketing, has conditioned us to see, that there's a way through this. So there's a technology, there's a built-in technology that we all have. You've heard me say this many, many times, our spiritual senses and organs in all of us humans that can harmonize the material view of the world with, sort of the mysteries of life, the unseen, the spiritual aspects of life. So it is now basically the time of awakening, that leads us to comprehend the greater secrets of the cosmos, as well as what it means to be human. Through more sober, internalized investigation, through bringing sort of the material aspect and the spiritual aspect within us into union, into harmony. And so as we go along with these, 10,000 years of prior spiritual investigation, we have 10,000 years of spiritual science, guys. Most of us are not aware of this. We only have like 500 years of material science, but 10,000 years of spiritual science. We have to also educate ourselves a little bit. So I will do all this not just by preaching or lecturing to you, but rather by inviting you to a journey of self-healing and sacred inner experiencing of this spiritual wisdom, yeah, that our ancestors have already sort of mastered, yeah, unconsciously. I regard this time right now, and also part of the reason of us incarnating into this time, as quite significant, because we are at the threshold of a sort of big transformation in the way we see the world, yeah, the material world, but also the spiritual world. We are like literally standing, at the precipice of finding ways to harmonize it. Yeah, these two seemingly irreconcilable or opposing realities, dualities in us. Yeah. And so your part in all of this is, just really your willingness to be open, to have an open mind, and this burning desire that hopefully all of you feel in your heart to remove those clouds and filters that our own lower ego has put into place to protect us, or, to make us sort of find the sort of the illusion of peace or security through simplifying our world. Yeah, and to help you navigate the toxicity that comes out of this collective asleepness that we are waking up from right now. Yeah, and last but not least, also to identify and learn ways to navigate the influence of adversarial unseen forces, yeah, forces that work against our awakening, yeah, dark forces, if you will, but without this sort of image that we have in our head of the devil or, demons, but rather investigate this through understanding cosmic laws, yeah, the bigger laws of what sort of makes our planet turn, what, makes sort of this consciousness awaken in us in the first place. Yeah, and to develop the courage and the power, yeah, that we can have as individuated human soul selves. The first prerequisite for building this bridge between the material and spiritual world, which I have outlined in this past 24-part workshop series called Building a Bridge, is that we recognize that there is an unseen aspect to our being and also to the life of the world around us. This often comes to us in an unexpected way, because if we actually start reflecting on the values and virtues that we humans strive for, and the desires that we all have in common, namely, what is it? Love, peace, harmony, happiness, the absence of struggle, inner peace, and just sort of being able to live our life undisturbed. Yeah. Those aren't physical goals. Those aren't material goals. We already know this. They're spiritual goals. This is the first prerequisite. We have to understand that we're actually driven by spiritual goals, by spiritual values that we seek, to manifest. We seek to create them in our life. And so we really need to start, or we need to learn to start our journey of becoming aware of the spiritual world with this insight, that there is an impulse in all of us humans that connects us, whether we're aware of it or not, that connects us and that motivates us to grow and evolve as a species, as a material, like human species. We all want, the human species to stay alive and not to get extinct, but also to understand ourselves as this spirit being that we are. So as we're still discussing, what spiritual science is, I'm walking you through the first steps yeah, that spiritual science teaches us. The moment that we recognize ourselves as a soul being, yeah, like I'm a soul with a body and not I'm a body with a soul, but I'm a soul somehow, yeah, whatever we call this. We've made this first step into the spiritual reality that surrounds us, and as we will find out later, also underlies our material world that basically creates the material reality around us. So with every step that we take that leads us away from just seeing or believing that we are, just in a material reality and that there's nothing beyond that, yeah, that this material reality in this lifetime is the only chance we have, is the only lifetime, and that the law that reigns our reality is somehow random or deterministic. Yeah, we call this materialism or materialistic worldview. It has nothing to do with money, but it plays into this. Yeah, with every step away from that, we are entering deeper into the unseen cosmos of the spirit world. And I reckon that all of you guys have already made multiple steps into this sort of greater reality. Yeah, that you no longer just see the material as the only reality that exists. And if you remember back, it is often our pain, or our fear of the future, the fear of the apocalypse, our confusion, or typically, yeah, our trauma that leads us or that led us to ask these spiritual questions. Yeah, that led us to ask, who am I really? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? So a lot of times it requires us to go through a lot of untruths in our life, yeah, like things that don't work for us, that create pain in us, to awaken. But this is not the only way, and this is what spiritual science wants to show. There is an ancient impulse in all of us humans, and we know this through anthropology, yeah, with cave paintings and all these, world wonders and mythologies and so forth that we can read up on, to inquire about the mysteries of life and the afterlife, to find our place in the cosmos and to understand what the task is that we all have as a whole humanity, but also as an individual. So after roughly 10,000 years of spiritual investigation that our, species has done, at least in this sort of time framework that we use, we can conclude that the confusion about these mysteries is greater than ever, and the pain and the suffering along with it. So what's the problem here? I mean, people in ancient times, I mean, we can look back and, were horrified about, the traditions that they had, animal sacrifice or human sacrifice or slavery or, weird sort of rituals, throughout the millennia. And we say to ourselves, oh, we're so much better nowadays. We're so much more advanced. We don't do these horrifying things anymore. I mean, with a few exceptions, maybe Holocaust or some things like that happened in the last 100 years. I don't know. I don't know how you see this, but we think we have sort of progressed from sort of this ancient way of looking at gods and demons and the devil and spirituality and so forth. But is that really so? Our mental health is at the lowest state ever. Our physical health, our, like overall state of life, yeah, like our lifestyles, the degenerative diseases, and all the things that come with this are at an all-time high. I mean, diseases always existed, but degenerative diseases, guys, aren't diseases that come about by a virus or a bacteria, by a germ. They come about through lifestyle. Yeah, so our mental and physical and emotional health is declining along with our spiritual health. So is it perhaps our modern way of living? Yeah, our obsession with convenience and pleasure in every aspect of our life, security. Maybe even technology is to blame for our confusion. Or science, material science. What do you think? What is it really that causes the confusion in us that we have today compared to ancient times where people had a very clear sense of self? Yes, granted, maybe limited. Okay, so if you were the daughter or the son of a farmer or potter or whatever sort of your family tradition was, you were kind of doomed to do this as well. You didn't have a lot of individuality. This is our sort of progress in our times today, that we can do whatever it is that we want to do. We can manifest our dreams and become whomever we want to become. And yet we have the biggest problems with that. All of a sudden, yeah, where we are being told that we can become anything that we want, we get lost. Our sense of self is lost. We no longer feel connection. We no longer feel purpose. We no longer find or have difficulties finding our place in the world. So are we really progressing? It's very common for us humans to blame external causes for our perceived suffering. But what if it is the way we think, the way we understand ourselves, the way we use words, the way we view life itself, our ways of identifying with our physical body or intellectual mind, that has led us into this disconnection, into this suffering, into this fear of the future and feeling lonely, feeling disconnected from the stream of life, the spiritual reality underneath all existence. Many of you have sort of intuitively understood this already. Yeah, you feel attracted to modern spirituality, astrology, yogic teachings, energy healing, yeah, or simply just like the lingo of it. It's promising sort of more freedom from sort of the old, outdated, dogmatic ways. You must do this and you have to do this, and that's because we've always done it so, and so forth. It promises freedom from that. But really, I've come to realize that we use words such as karma or chakra or even energy, as I mentioned earlier, without really knowing, without really understanding, well, not just what they mean, but what their true significance is in forming an understanding of the world or ourselves. Because if we truly look, okay, at how we define life in our society, how we define, I don't know, success in our society, we define life in a mechanistic way. We prioritize our time based on productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, functioning, and perfecting. How many of you have issues with not feeling good enough? This wasn't really a thing in ancient time, guys. It wasn't. We have to recognize that this is sort of the stuff that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis, our critical inner voice, our negative inner self-talk, this stress, this permanent sort of ADHD, this overload, this cognitive overload on information and needing to do this and that and all that in and of itself is a sign, well, if you will, of a disease. It is not a physical disease. It is a soul disease. Like Rudolf Steiner calls it, sort of the sickness of the soul is the illusion that we are not connected with the divine or the spirit or, the spiritual world. On my personal journey, this made me think. If I think back of the most traumatic, most dark times in my own spiritual biography, it was exactly those times when I felt the most disconnected, the most lonely. So we must ask ourselves, why is all this in conflict in me? Why is our world full of war, conflict, pain, suffering, lies, manipulation? What are we not seeing here? Yeah, not to mention the recent discussion about AI and what it can do for us and the meaning of it in our lives, or the dangers of transhumanism. We must ask ourselves this. What are we not seeing here? Are we really progressing, or are we merely simulating a cold, machine-like existence that unconsciously, without us realizing it, distances us from understanding the true powers in us, that are being brought into life through us humans, that connect us with our sense of self, our true identity. Which powers are that? You might ask yourself, like, what is she talking about? Aren't we all like powerless observers of the fall of human goodness? That the apocalypse is near and all we can do is endure or suffer through it? Really? Do we have a role to play in there? Is this maybe part of our purpose? To master, to conquer the fears and the loneliness and the desire for a better world, or the desire for perfection. These constant sort of forces that pull us out of a conscious present moment. So there's a lot we're not seeing, and that's why it's called the unseen, but in a non-judgmental way. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And you know this. At night, when it's dark out, the sun's gone. But the next day, we know that it's going to come back. But how do we actually know this? We know it through our inner experience and through education. All right, we don't have to ponder all night about whether or not the sun is going to come back the next day. Luckily, maybe some of us do, but we already have tools for that. Material science. Material science can explain to us why and the mechanisms, well, not why, but the mechanisms of how it comes that it's dark at night and bright during the day. So what lies in between all this? These are sort of the rules, the laws, of our material world. But what lies in between and what happens when you go to sleep? If you can't fall asleep nowadays, I think it's almost the exception. You have to have really good, deep, undisturbed sleep. We'll talk about that in another workshop. What is it that we're not seeing, but that comes alive at night? Yeah. Yet just because the sun is gone doesn't mean the world comes to a stop or all life ends or, 2-year-olds sometimes think that. Yeah? That's why when they cover their faces, they believe that others can't see them. So just because we are asleep doesn't mean that we're like dead. What actually happens during sleep is that our physical body goes to sleep. Yeah, the material aspect of ourselves and the force that holds us together, sort of makes sure that we wake up the next day, just like the forces that make the sun, rise the next morning. Cosmic forces, spiritual forces, unseen forces. But the part in you, that awakens, that sort of begins to see in darkness, that part is active. And spiritual science helps us to uncover what it is, that occurs at nighttime. So the next step is to recognize that all these unseen things at least might exist. Okay, and that there is a sort of a fallibility, that there is sort of an error in our thinking to believe only what we can see or touch. This is an important step, and often, quite frankly, here, as someone who guides people through this self-healing journey, the hardest one. You have to detach from our obsession to our mind that creates a material reality for us that literally sort of appears as the only reality there is, and completely forgetting that there are bigger forces at play. But without our higher faculties, our higher perception, the development of the refinement of our spiritual senses and organs that we all have, by the way, and listening to this inner impulse, this burning desire that I talked about earlier, it is impossible for us to get there. It is a new paradigm of thinking, a new way of seeing the world and ourselves that is needed, in order to unlock these higher faculties in us, such as being able to discern truth, just to name the most important one in our time of mind control, social media, AI, marketing, political mystery dramas. It is only through the cultivation and the practical training of our mind, deeds, and will that we can learn to navigate this polarity in us, in our human reality. So once we agree to accept, or to tolerate that there are unseen forces that operate in the spiritual reality. Let's just say because we cannot see them or cannot understand them yet. Let's just agree that our mind is limited, not in a degrading way, but in a way Like we would look at a 3-year-old and would say, oh, this is just because he's 3 years old. He cannot understand this. His brain isn't even, the organ that he thinks with, that he sees with, that he touches with, that he operates his five senses with, isn't fully developed yet, isn't fully connected yet. Yeah? If we look at ourselves sort of like these spiritual children that have the faculty, just like the 3-year-old obviously, has the faculty for conceptual and abstract thinking and, all these sort of cognitive abilities that we have, but it's not fully developed yet. If we look at ourselves as spiritual children, that have these spiritual senses and organs, but we haven't really worked them yet. We haven't really progressed enough, to it's a timely progression. We haven't evolved enough. Not like as in like we did a bad job, okay, but as a whole humanity, okay, to rely on them, to trust in them. Just like how we trust in our eyes or our sense of touch. And it's also important that we don't forget that, within these unseen forces that we, like these spiritual children, don't fully understand yet, that they're also forces that operate, that aim at controlling our development. Now, some of us, sort of try to pull us into the higher spiritual realms, and some of us try to pull us down, anchor us fully in the material, in the earth. That we can feel this within ourselves, this polarity. And just if we have this visual in our heads, that there is sort of a force that tries to awaken us, that tries to, help us grow up. Like we as parents would do with the 3-year-old. There are also powers that pull us down, that want to stop or, slow down or maybe divert the awakening process in us. And perhaps also with an agenda, with the aim to control what we hold in mind, with what the realities that we are create, with the powers, the not quite yet understood powers of our consciousness, the adversarial forces, and that they constantly sort of push and pull on us. This is sort of the reality that we are experiencing, most of us, without really understanding it, why that is. We think it's us. We think we are so bad. We are not good enough. We don't deserve, blah, blah, blah. But if you free yourself from all these unconscious beliefs, and especially if you've already experienced the power of your higher perception, that this awakening in yourself, the power that can activate an entirely new level of clarity and truth within your mind and heart, that can change your entire outlook on life, that can heal your old wounds, that can help you overcome your fear of the future, of the unknown, and give you the courage to express yourself, who you are. This power is what I am talking about. So how can we get there? Many of us still believe that we need to be of a certain denomination, perhaps, or social club, or guru group, or whatever, to unlock the true potential in us. You hear this on ads all the time. And many of us have, tried a lot of these different pathways. Maybe religion, maybe guru groups, maybe you went to an ashram in India, maybe you joined some kind of spiritual group or the Galactic Federation or whatever. But really what it is all about is to discover the powers that I just talked about, our spiritual powers, our higher sort of faculties, these spiritual senses and organs within ourselves that allow us to become self-healers and conscious manifestors, that allow us to discover our true co-creative powers and how we create reality through the power of our consciousness. I know you've heard this a million times, but do you actually know how big this is? This is so hard to understand because all these different pathways that we've tried in the past, they have misled us. They've sent us to the wrong exit, as I always call it. But there is a way to get there through your own contemplation. And this way is called spiritual science. It combines the study of ancient spiritual wisdom that is already there, reading, studying, and so forth, with our inner observation. It doesn't mean that we have to take everything and say, oh, because this, spiritual teacher 8,000 years ago said this, and that's why it's more true. Just because it is older or ancient doesn't make it more true. On the contrary, we always need to put into account that there is an evolutionary path that all of us are on. We are living in a time where our job is to discover that power within ourselves. In other words, yes, we should study, we should educate ourselves on spiritual wisdom, ancient spiritual wisdoms, but then add our own inner observation, our own inner experience to it and discern and say, well, this makes sense, or this I resonate with, but this doesn't feel right. And I take the right, I claim the right to say, I connect with it. This is what feels true to me. But this I can't really connect with without vilifying or demonizing or making it wrong. To just say, I've learned a lot through even the false teachings that I have studied, that I have, dedicated myself to. In fact, I have learned the most through all my errors and mistakes. Coming to this realization harmonizes without us, being fully aware of it, but it already harmonizes the material and spiritual experience that we have. And in that, it transcends the deceptions of popular New Age spirituality or outdated religious dogmas or even ancient spiritual wisdoms. Transcends, not negates. No, it's inclusive, guys. We got to realize that it's our job now to renew spirituality, to bring about a new, updated version of spirituality, one that we as conscious soul beings brought into life, becoming living wisdom. So in essence, spiritual science can show us a way or lead us, the spiritual seekers, to come to our own internalized understanding of the spirit world that surrounds us, not just at night, but also in our everyday reality, with the sober scientific methodology, without conflicting agendas, based on the unifying of our mind, our cognitive, intellectual capabilities, and our heart, our sacred heart, that flame in our hearts that connects us with sort of the greater spiritual force, the higher power, the divine. Therefore, spiritual science goes beyond just religious belief or blind faith. It seeks to unite. It seeks to harmonize the clarity of objective observation with the depths of inner knowing. Let me repeat this. It seeks to harmonize, to unite the clarity of objective observation with the depths of inner knowing. Now, a new paradigm of science that I have been calling this for over 20 years. A new level of subjective objectivity, if you will. One that is rooted in spiritual awareness. Approaching life and the human being not as a machine or machine-like kind of thing, as our law defines it, yeah, like just a brain that functions like a computer, and when that is off, you're legally dead. Yeah, that's a materialistic definition of life. I hope you guys all understand the depths of that. No, it approaches the human being as a multidimensional, okay, this is a tricky word, yeah, but meaning basically, well, physical and spiritual reality, those are two realities, if you will. That's multidimensional. Perhaps there are other dimensions. We don't know this yet, so let's not preoccupy our minds with 5D and stuff like that, because we first have to understand our dimension, this material dimension, and the spiritual dimension, yeah, that is out there. We still sort of struggling with accepting that in our lives. Yeah, and that we are not just a body, yeah, but that we are a body, a soul, a spirit, okay, with a heart and a soul that seek to unite, that seek to understand the evolutionary path of us humans via our consciousness. And not just for ourselves, of course, this is where we start, but also for humanity as a whole. So rather than separating science from spirit, spiritual science sees all phenomena, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic, as interconnected expressions of a higher order, a cosmic order. It draws from these ancient spiritual wisdoms, the esoteric traditions, as well as anthroposophy, Hermeticism, Vedic knowledge, and mystical Christianity. And this is really what I want to bring closer to you. Yeah, but not seeing this as some like sort of up high on the mountaintop study or some abstract sort of another spiritual theory. Yeah, but learning the practical tools that come through this paradigm of investigating reality and immersing and participating in reality. Yeah, not just for your inner self-development, self-healing, and perception beyond your physical senses, but also for a deeper alignment to the cosmic forces, the cosmic rhythms and cycles that are there, yeah, that we are constantly experiencing without knowing what they mean. So for the spiritual aware, spiritual science is not just a framework of thought. It is a living path of initiation, of spiritual initiation. A living path of spiritual initiation. It challenges us to think with our hearts, to feel with our moral clarity, our ability to discern truth, and to act with purpose. It calls us to awaken our higher self, discern truth in a world of illusion and delusion, and actively participate through consciously healing ourselves, our fellow humans, and the earth. And with it, following an impulse in us, yeah, a sort of a sacred flame in our hearts that guides us, into understanding who we are, why we're here, and what our purpose is. So this concludes the long discourse into spiritual science. Now I want to finally come to, sort of lifting or opening up, the understanding of what Ascension and Pentecost, these Christian holidays, what is encoded in them. So I would like you, if you still can, take a deeper dive into the secrets or the mysteries of Christian holidays now. And perhaps if you already know what Pentecost celebrates, sort of put this aside, if you know this from, like, say, your Christian upbringing, and just open yourself for something, that I, as a spiritual teacher and guide and therapist, deem as noteworthy in this time. So as I am now sort of shifting the energy into the energetic secrets of Ascension and Pentecost, I want you to know that there is a reason why I took so much time to explain what spiritual science is. Because it is necessary to understand spiritual science, or sort of these first steps that we've made together here, before you can investigate sacred holidays or rituals or ancient sort of traditions. You have to first understand that and be able to place sort of this evolutionary journey of humanity in its right time. Ascension and Pentecost are not merely sacred dates, or free holidays, okay, in the Christian calendar. They're very, very powerful energetic gateways, portals, as like sort of New Age calls it, that send a reminder to shift our consciousness, that basically work like wake-up calls, like downloads. But to truly understand this, what these words even mean, what the hidden meaning is, we first need to understand this sort of inner process, this alchemical process within ourselves, how we awaken and how we work our spiritual senses and organs, and how nature does it, and how the cosmos does it, which you will later discover. Namely, through realizing that, yes, they say we live in a they say we live in a holographic universe, but what does that actually mean? You know what it means is as simple as, sort of a pattern repetition, a fractal sort of repetition of the very same process within the microcosm, mirrored in the macrocosm, or, as we will find out, vice versa. These larger forces, these rhythms and cycles and laws that they represent, even when you just look at our solar system, you can see them. You can experience them. And you can also dive into astrology that measures sort of the effect that it has on your human psyche, but that's just a tiny little part of, this bigger cosmic law there. What you will find is that there is a constant in and out breath in everything, like sort of a contraction and an expansion, a rhythm, a pulse, that goes through our cosmos, and that does something, not only to sentient life, but also to matter. So alchemical means not just to sort of the physical material science behind body cells and hormones and neurotransmitters and biochemical reactions. It means the alchemical, the sort of greater force behind that. And that has a lot to do with in and out breath, as most of you guys know from your yoga classes. So ascension, the meaning of ascension, is of course in the allegorical version, which we can read in the Bible, in the New Testament. For example, in the Gospel of Luke, is the moment after resurrection, after, letting back up a little bit, we celebrate the birth, of the Christ or Jesus, the Jesus baby, the Jesus human in Christianity. We celebrate the passion, the crucifixion, the death, and all that lies in between that, and the resurrection, we celebrate that at Easter. And 40 days after Easter, we celebrate, this was in May 25th, I think, and 29th it was, we celebrate Ascension. That is basically when the resurrected Jesus, and I'm using my own words here because I'm not very good at reciting scripture in English, basically lifted his arms and rose up into heaven. Allowed himself, the reality of this was, we learned this in spiritual science, is that his body was basically sort of burning up because it could not contain, these high vibratory energies in the physical body no longer. But it etherized, it got lifted up, into the ether through the higher spiritual hierarchies. That's sort of the lore of it. It's the moment when Christ, having fully transubstantiated his body from death to resurrection body, the glorified etheric body. I talk about this in electrification and etherization in this workshop series here on my YouTube channel, rises beyond the physical plane. So energetically, this event represents the etherization of his light body. Something that, you've probably heard in many different ways, the rainbow body, the crystal body, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to talk about this today, But it represents basically the conclusion of that process that we can observe through, following the steps in Jesus's lives. The sort of spiritualization of his physical body, a release of earthly density, egoic material attachment and duality. It's the archetype that we work with. It's the archetype of spiritual maturity, like spiritual masters, ascended masters, if you've heard this. But really what it means is often sort of wishy-washy. Because we don't understand the spiritual science underneath it. So in this state, when your being has reached a maturity that you can overcome the spirit, the material density, when your light body, your energy body is so harmonized, if you will, that you can sort of, portal yourself away. Your soul is freed, is no longer bound by the fear of survival and the material. So in our own lives, the practical meaning of that, and of what is actually celebrated here in this Ascension holiday, the Ascension impulse and remembering this invites us to self-heal, to work on all these things like the egoic, our ego attachments, our soul pain, our physical pain, and to sort of bring this back into a memory that we can transcend these earthly, these material attachments. How? By surrendering what no longer serves us, and by recognizing that higher wisdom is accessible, when we choose to seek it, when we choose to seek it. So when we choose to seek the detachment from the material, yeah, and I've just talked about this, yeah, in conjunction with spiritual science, yeah, something happens with our being. Yeah, it's not that we all sort of rise to heaven. I mean, there's still, sort of like a picture in our head, perhaps, that shows it this way. But really, what it is that our energy body starts to spiritualize. It starts to become less dense. Yeah, it begins to etherize. Yeah, this is sort of the purpose behind, yeah, seeing yourself as a soul primarily with a physical attachment rather than a physical blob, that has maybe a little bit of a soul attachment. That's the purpose of remembering. This is the purpose of awakening. Ascension stands for awakening. And with that awakening, yeah, with these first two steps that we walk together, namely, well, first of all, realizing that it's not just material, and second of all, that all these things that I identify with, yeah, that they are actually symbolic or, quite literal, this density, yeah, just all the fears and our loneliness and our struggles and all just linked to our physical material reality. Yeah, and that there is a fallibility, that there's an error perception along with that we need to learn to identify and to overcome. But also that we can. So Jesus, in a way, yeah, teaches humanity how to do this by, yes, you have to go through a little bit of a passion time. Yeah, you have to go through a little bit of a death of an ego. Yes, you have to go through a little bit of a dark night of a soul. But for a reason, for a purpose. And it says here, by surrendering what no longer serves us. And recognizing that higher wisdom is accessible if we choose to seek it. So Ascension reminds us, yeah, that there is sort of a process in us, yeah, that gets triggered, that gets sort of started the moment we seek to understand the spiritual world, the cosmos. Yeah, an emergence that occurs in us. Awakening is a process that starts something in us. Yeah, if you will, yeah, the evolution of our true self. Yeah, I've been doing these, connect with your true self free every month for, 13 or 14 years now. Yeah, to give you guys a space where you can practice that, where you can practice connecting with it and seeking it to, continually sort of cultivate this process in you. And to recognize, yeah, that there is so much more to you than just your physical body. That is a big part of Jesus's teaching in this sort of ascension scene. Now, the Pentecost means 50th. Okay, the 50th day. So 10 days after ascension comes Pentecost. 50 days after Easter. That's today. This event initiates a different impulse in us. And this is very important, in conjunction with this in-breath and out-breath. The first, sort of we raise our arms, we reach out to the higher worlds and basically sort of do our attendance, yeah? Say our name and say, yes, 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 I'm here. I want to know. I want to connect with this. And then 10 days later, obviously it's not literal, but in the Jesus story, it was 10 days later. Yeah, Jesus told, read this in the Gospel of Luke, told his apostles, stay here in Jerusalem. I'm not going anywhere just because I'm etherizing. I mean, this is my own rendering of this. Just because my body is now sort of invisible for you, it doesn't mean I'm gone. Okay, stay here. I'll stay here for another 10 days. And something will be revealed to you. Yeah, by me sort of doing this, yeah, Jesus speaks in my words. All right, I'm basically bringing something down with me. I'm bringing something down with me, yeah, through me. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. And allow this new spirit, okay, to descend into you. So the Pentecost, as opposing to the Ascension, which is an upward movement, which is a sort of a dissolution, yeah, a dissolution of our material density, which is sort of an outbreath, okay? The Pentecost symbolizes now the in-breath of spirit. Yeah, basically sort of all those beautiful higher spiritual hierarchies, you know, those angel hierarchies that I've also lectured about. You can find this all on my YouTube channel. There's like, yay, okay. They're aware, they're reaching out, they want to, they are seekers. Okay, they bring down the most important tool that you need to activate, to, you know, cultivate, to refine your spiritual perception, your spiritual organs. So it's the descent of the Spirit that is celebrated with the Pentecost holiday, like a baptism. Yeah, like the baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist, or our baptism, but not with water. But this time, the higher version of it, with the Holy Spirit directly revealing itself to our individual consciousness. Again, if we seek it. So while ascension pulls us upward, the Pentecost reminds us to draw, sort of to pull the heaven down. Those of you familiar with my teachings, vital causality, syntropy, and so forth, this is all linked to that. And don't ask any sort of hypothetical or abstract questions here. Feel my words instead. The Holy Spirit is directly revealing itself to our consciousness. I call this a tool. In classical Christian scripture, the Holy Spirit appears as the tongues of fire. Gospel of John, chapter 14. Symbolizing the ignition of what? Tongues of fire, what does this mean? Symbolizing the ignition of inner truth. Yeah? Inspiration. And communal purpose. Basically providing us, each and every one of us conscious human beings, with the power of the Christ to speak in a language, tongues of fire, that can be understood by every human. Yeah, through sort of the language of the heart. And guess what? Here in John's Gospel, Jesus says, I will send you the Spirit of truth. The Spirit of truth. Yeah, sort of here in context with the Holy Spirit, revealing itself to us within our hearts, within our own consciousness. In other words, we can see truth. Okay? Which is a major step in our consciousness and our soul development. As sort of the next level, yeah, into a higher spiritual hierarchy, into our own human spiritual hierarchy. Yeah, basically sort of shown to us, yeah, how the spiritual initiation path works, yeah, by example of first Jesus's and then later Christ's life. So at this, yes, event, yeah, where Jesus basically says we're well, okay, and explaining to them why all this was necessary, how I had to die on the cross and all that. He basically transfers these powers of the Holy Spirit in form of the Spirit of truth to his disciples and ignites the fire of apostleship in them. Now, what is apostleship? Basically to go out and teach to others. Yeah, what all this was about. This coming of the Messiah and, liberating the world from all dark and domination. Yeah, to help others, to empower, to guide, and teach. Yeah, directly, okay, due to the power of consciousness that was, they were baptized with the Holy Spirit, and so are all of us. Yeah, they were the first humans, okay? And from then on, yeah, from this event on, it is accessible to all of us. So energetically, the Pentecost marks the moment of an activation. Yeah, when higher consciousness no longer just sort of floats above, on a cloud, but breathes through the sacred heart, the voice, the words, the body, the expressions of the conscious soul selves like yourself, you and you and you and me. This is the moment when the soul becomes an individuated spirit being. And thus fulfilling its evolutionary task, the purpose of even going through this lifetime, and later we'll learn multiple lifetimes, not just for a personal awakening or karma, but for service and embodiment of divine will through us. Through us, not as a conduit, as so many constantly call it, but through us via our conscious will. Due to the power of our consciousness that allows us to experience that within ourselves. This is huge, guys. And here, just a little bit, like a hint, at the sequence, the order, and why I've added Ascension to the explanation, or to the dive into the energetic secrets of Pentecost, because I've already done a workshop on this, which goes deeper into this, like reason, why we even want to enter that, why we even want to self-heal, and what this sort of liberation from our egoic, from our material attachments even means, in the practical. But here, I want to point more at the sequence and the alchemical process behind that, which is first step to rise into unity, to go back, and strive for connecting with higher power. But then not to like sort of get stuck up there on the mountaintop or on the cloud, ivory tower, of, I'm ascended, but to descend, to return with purpose, and to recognize that these words that I speak are words that deeply resonate as truths in our hearts. I, for myself, have recognized the spirit of truth in me. And that's where I get the courage and the power to express myself in this way. Yeah. And my message to you is to find that courage in you as well. That you have that power in you. So when we strive, for connecting with higher power, yeah, we are basically sort of going back to our own origin. Yeah, we ascend to remember our origin, and then we descend again to fulfill our destiny, which is basically to bring it into the material reality, into this physical world. Yeah, to become living wisdom. So as we do this, yeah, we learn to surrender our fears. We surrender our ego stuff. Yeah, we self-heal. Yeah, we work with our true self. This is how we do this, guys. Everything that you guys have learned on your sacred self-healing journey has prepared you for this. Yeah, has prepared you for this sort of greater energetic secret. Yeah, this alchemical process of in-breath and out-breath, the dance between surrender and embodiment. But only when the ego is relinquished, yeah, when we've fully surrendered sort of I want to say the illusion and delusion of the ego, because we still need the ego, you know this. Yeah? Can the higher the self, our higher self descend into us and fully manifest, yeah, into our physical reality? How does it do that? Guess what? Through our thoughts, through our deeds, through our words, through our choices, through our will. Our will ties us, or, basically awakens the I, the higher self in us. And then it comes down, and now we have to sort of go through that process of consciously co-creating our life. So, because this is such a big topic, we can't really go much further than that now, here today. But I just want to bring back sort of the memory, the ancient memory in you of what the spiritual significance of this season is, and these thresholds that we are sort of, sometimes just passing by. We kind of feel it in our energy body, maybe a little bit. You guys are all energetically sensitive, but don't really know what is actually going on there. So in this time, we are invited, we are sort of awakened, okay, with an alarm clock, to listen more deeply, to speak more truthfully, to act more courageously, and to think more clearly from the center of our being, illuminated through the sacred higher, from our higher self. So these flaming tongues with which the disciples were able to talk and be understood by no matter what sort of race and tribe at the time, is ignited, through the descent of the spirit of truth into us. I call this the ability to discern truth. A little bit sort of more material sounding, yeah, just so that it's easier for us, yeah, to understand what this is actually about. I want to conclude sort of my part here with a little story for you. Because I was thinking about how can I, without sounding like a teacher, without, breaking it all down and coming up with sort of, A, B, C, D, because our ego wants that. I can do that. I am a teacher. But how else can I find ways to bring, sort of this inner experience to you? And I do courses, I do all kinds of things, daily meditations, energy sessions, da da da. I'm specialized, yeah, on helping people to have that inner experience, along with all the courses and teachings. But I came up with something that I have observed, yeah, others before me have done, and that is through allegories, through metaphors, through stories. I'm not much of a poet, but listen to this little story here that I want to send you home with, sort of as an imagination, yeah, as an imagination of what spiritual science is and how, yeah, this can awaken your sacred heart. It is the story of the village of the forgotten clock. In a quiet valley nestled between ancient mountains was once a village that had lost its inner compass. The people there, well, still lived, worked, and laughed. But something essential had gone missing. They no longer asked the big questions. Not because they didn't care, but because they had grown too busy, too distracted, too tangled in the noise of modern life. Who are we? Why are we here? What are we part of? These questions used to live at the heart of the village, but now they were buried beneath screens, schedules, phones, and systems designed to tell people what to think, feel, or what to fear. At the center of the village stood a strange tower made of dark stone and spiraling vines. Nobody really knew why. The elders whispered that it was once a living clock, a timekeeper, not just of the days and nights, but of deeper rhythms, planetary cycles, soul movements, and cosmic seasons. This clock didn't just remember time or didn't just keep track of time. It remembered being. It told the story of how human beings fit into something far greater than themselves. But over time, people stopped listening. They no longer felt the pulse of the earth beneath their feet. They no longer sensed the stars above them as kin. The clock grew silent, veiled in forgetfulness. Then came Ellen, a curious child, full of questions the adults had stopped asking. Well, why do we feel so lost? She asked one night. Why do we keep moving faster if no one knows where we're going? What if we're not just here to survive, but to remember who we truly are? drawn by a quiet longing, Elin wandered to the tower. As she touched the stone, something stirred, not in the tower, but in herself. A gentle vibration, a remembering. She began visiting every day. Not for answers, not to listen. Sorry, not for answers, but to listen. She watched the moment the clouds, she watched the movement of the clouds. She took time noticing the way shadows curved with the sun and began to feel deeply. The tower became her place of initiation, where the cosmos whispered truths not written in books. And it said that she was not separate from the world, that her thoughts shaped her reality, and that her soul was part of something infinite and intelligent. And they saw Elin grow wiser and more radiant and happier by the day. So others began to follow, not because she told them so, but because something about her presence reminded them of something that they had forgotten. As the village began to slow down and tune in, something big changed. People began to feel again, not just their emotions, but their aliveness. They reconnected with the land, with their own bodies, with each other. They stopped asking only how to fix the world and started asking how to heal themselves as part of it instead. They realized that the real clock was not in the tower. It was in them, in the earth, in the stars, and most importantly, in the relationship between all things. This is the path of spiritual science. It is not the blind belief, not abstract knowledge. It is the living inquiry into what it means to be human, to be conscious, connected, yes, and responsible. It is not about feeling guilty or flawed or sinned. It is about recognizing this power in us, provided through the Holy Spirit in form of the Spirit of Truth. Here pointed out in this Ascension and Pentecost story. Teaches us to think with the heart, to see with the soul, and to live with the intention in harmony with the greater whole. Yeah, so basically the ascension, was the call, of little Elin to the tower on Pentecost. It's the impulse, that turned that inner clock back on. So in a time when humanity risks being reduced to code, data, utility, perfectionism, spiritual science reminds us that we're not machines. We're creators, bridge builders, witnessers to the unseen mystery of life and the cosmos. And when we remember this, we begin to reawaken not only ourselves, but also the world around us. So this is the reason why I wanted to use the Pentecost and Ascension lecture here, yeah, sort of as the kickoff, as the start for this new workshop series, this new series here in our sacred self-healing community. When we launched the new Sacred Self-Healing Community on June 19th, you're going to hear about the different ways, how to connect there, and, the different sort of initiation pathways, the different lectures, the different workshops, the different courses, and so forth. But right now, all I want you to remember, maybe just for a few moments today, to connect with the love for the land, to connect with the stars, to connect with the towers all around us, they carry this wake up potential, that can reawaken, this sort of cosmic heart, this clock, this inner clock in you, So I hope that you enjoyed this. Okay, I will post this recording on YouTube as well as the new Sacred Self-Healing Community. And we'll continue this workshop series with episode 2 that will talk about the St. John's tide. Yes, this is sort of the next big sort of cosmic soul event, the solstice, or the time around the solstice. And I want to explore the significance together with you, of this time. So tuning into these cosmic rhythms and cycles by, taking sort of our own tribal, ancient traditions, which sacred holidays are, and use them sort of as guides for that. I can't wait, guys. Please push the like button. Please comment. Please make this available to other people, because by you interacting with the video on YouTube, you are changing the algorithm so that other people can find it too. Never forget this, right? So I see you soon. Bye-bye. Happy Pentecost.